What's up everyone, and welcome back to HateWatchers. Today we're continuing on with our breakdowns and reviews for the second season of The Rings of Power with episode 7, entitled Doomed to Die. And my god, that's a fitting title for this show. Let's get right into the breakdown, which means spoilers ahead. We open up with a peaceful panoramic view of Eregion, where Celebrimbor is spooning mithril into his coffee like it's sugar, before banging, binding, and twisting his metals into the rings of men. Celebrimbor pops his head under the table to have a conversation with this rat he thinks is Elrond, and then he sees his reflection, and he wonders where all the 3,000 years went. Annatar strolls in and tells Celebrimbor that he looks good on his knees, before continuing to Dutch oven the room to screw with Celebrimbor's head. After getting engaged to herself in episode 1, Galadriel's wedding is just a week away, and Celebrimbor and Annatar hammer out the final details to prepare Eregion for the ceremony. But they're a bit behind schedule as Annatar strolls outside to find that Eregion is looking a little more like Springfield. Across the river, Adar and his orcs blacken the sky with their assaults, while Annatar tells the elves that Celebrimbor has gone insane and is talking to rats. The orcs, meanwhile, get tired of such an easy target and spin around their trebuchets to attack the mountains for acting all high and mighty all the time. It's a quick victory for the orcs, and the remains of the mountain dam the river. Meanwhile, with a break in the fighting, the elves run off to prepare the city for Galadriel's wedding. Arondir arrives to do some fishing, but now that the waters run dry, he's determined to have his revenge on the orcs. In Khazad-dûm, the King of Bling orders Narvi to go take back the mine from his son so he can continue digging. But Narvi and his gang join Lizzo's girl squad instead, and then Narvi tells the prince that there's some effeminate weirdo here to see him. And that weirdo is Elrond, who's dressed up like he's on the cover of a romance novel, and Durin doesn't hold back in making fun of the elf's little outfit. Still, Elrond entreats the dwarves to come fight for Eregion so that they can have Galadriel's wedding, despite how sad it's going to be, and the dwarf promises his aid. Back in Eregion, the battle rages on outside as Annatar comes looking for the rings, but Celebrimbor has discovered that he's stuck in a gassy hallucination, and Annatar puts the gas in gaslighting.
What have you done to me? Done to you? You practically begged for it.
After thinking he's woken up in Springfield, Ohio, he breaks down in tears and knocks over his jar of mithril to discover he's actually been putting Sauron's black blood into his coffee every morning. Now that he knows for sure 100% that Annatar is Sauron, he makes a break for it, but gets immediately one-shotted. When he wakes up, he finds himself in Bizarro Springfield, where the dogs are eating the people. He orders the elves to seize Sauron, but the elves have turned on Lord Celebrimbor. He tells them to just look at the black blood in his hand, but he's
a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand.
Celebrimbor gets angry and takes it out on Galadriel 2.0, and she gets tossed over and slaughtered by orcs in a hilarious scene. In the aftermath, Annatar offers to save the city if Celebrimbor will finish the 9. Yeah, now's the time to take Sauron at his word. It's not like he's been playing you for an entire season. But suddenly, the elvish cavalry has arrived. They charge in and then, they stop and just look around. And then begin a second charge for no reason, and we're back up and running. But they still haven't gotten there 47 seconds later when the orcs pull a shocking twist, revealing that they've actually come to deliver the bride, and the groom in this instance, hoping to ransom her before the wedding. And the elves stop their charge and everyone stands around awkwardly. They have an uncomfortable wedding dinner rehearsal before getting into a fight over how much Galadriel is worth, with both sides trying to go lower than the other, and it ends with them vowing to do war on the morrow. Before leaving, Elrond got a little too drunk and he kisses the bride. Who hasn't been there? But he slides something into Galadriel's hand, and even she didn't notice because what the fuck? In Khazad-dûm, Prince Durin promises to ban ditty parties and the bling-bling that's tainted his father. While Galadriel frees herself, Celebrimbor finishes the 9, and King Durin prepares to fight for his right to ditty parties. Back outside Eregion, Elrond's horse is doing all the work on the battlefield, while most of the elves are busy inventing horseback mud wrestling. But the orcs, minions of Morgoth and doers of evil, are tired of war and starting to feel betrayed by Adar. On the other side of camp, now free, Galadriel is getting catcalled, and she turns down the wrong alley. But all 3 orcs get taken out by arrows, and Galadriel looks around like, wow, I really am good. She runs into Arondir and is like, dude, you're not gonna believe what I just did. Back in Khazad Dûm, Narvi rushes in to tell Doran that the king is cutting through their men like wheat. And boy, I would have really liked to see that. Thanks, Amazon. Meanwhile, Annatar continues to manipulate Celebrimbor, who actually turns it around and gaslights Annatar, telling him that his gas has even gotten to his own head, which throws Annatar for a loop.
You can deceive even yourself.
Celebrimbor finishes the 9, and, intent on escaping, realizes he'll have to chop off his own thumb. But I'm sure on the inside, he has a little chuckle when he realizes he could still wear all 9 of the rings. Then we get some deja vu as Celebrimbor once again leaves the forge and once again gets instantly knocked out. Some elvish cops ask if he's okay, but when he doesn't give them 2 thumbs up, they move to throw his crazy old ass in jail, but Karen Sue complains and steps in to save him, just because she needs him for her wedding. He tells Gao that he fucked up because he kinda knew it was Sauron. I mean, it was just a wig this whole time, but a few parts of him were seduced by the Great Deceiver. He heads off with the elves to delay Sauron, while Galadriel escapes with the rings. Enough rings, she realizes, to marry herself 9 times. Back to the battle, the elves are still getting turbo-fucked, and Elrond rallies the troops while Lucy Liu gets turned into Swiss cheese. Good job, Elrond. With her last act, she shoots a flaming arrow right into the orc's self-nuke button. And no, there is no explanation for why this exists, just look at the pretty explosions and stop asking questions. Then Elrond charges in as Lucy Liu dies almost as fast as her career. Celebrimbor brings some elves to arrest Annatar, but the Dark Lord of the shit is too powerful in the Force and easily dispatches the elvish scum. Outside, a giant troll has shown up to the wedding, drunk before it even begins, and Elrond, Arondir, and High King Gilgalad team up to remove this problem guest. The sun rises once more on Eregion, and Elrond looks to the east for Prince Doran and his entourage, but all they get is this one elf who looks like shit, telling them that the dwarves aren't coming. The remaining 22 elves charge against the dozens of orcs because now that it's daytime, they can't cover up the crappy CGI with darkness, so they have to drastically cut down the size of the armies. Adar cuts down Arondir, the orcs break into the city, and Elrond does nothing while he watches friends he's known for millennia die in agony, a sight to which he's completely apathetic. Adar chokes him and takes Galadriel's ring, casting her wedding into doubt, and the episode doesn't end because the credits bring us this incredibly fitting song. Holy shit, yet another episode has its entire emotional tone undercut by some modern music, this time of the hardcore variety. Well, we've reached that point in the video where we have to decide if this episode was a great watch or a hate watch. And despite all the gratuitous violence and wondrous explosions, this one still gets a hate watch. Some of this episode is better than previous episodes, simply by default at this point. But my god, there are some atrocious things in this one. The action helped a lot to make this episode better than most episodes this season because at least something happened. And the season's best storyline of Sauron deceiving Celebrimbor into making the rings came to a brutal head, so that was alright. Although the nature by which they learn of Sauron's deceit in the books is wildly different than it happened here, so even when the show is doing something not bad, it's still wrong. I also didn't hate seeing Sauron finally flex some of his magical muscle. I'm interested in seeing a hell of a lot more of that. Also, seeing the elvish cavalry in their armor was pretty cool for a few seconds. So if you're looking for a show that will bore you to tears, tear down one of the most revered lores in literary history, but also have you saying, hey, that's cool, for 10 seconds each season, The Rings of Power is the show for you. On to the atrocious and annoying things, we've got to start in the depths of hell, otherwise referred to as Galadriel's mouth, and specifically Elrond kissing it. This was just bizarre, but I can't even feign surprise that they do something like this. Plus it reeks of shitty fanfiction writing. Galadriel has a husband as much as this show wants to pretend that she's strong and independent, and Elrond eventually marries Galadriel's daughter. So unless this show is going the Sweet Home Alabama route and going to have Elrond marry the daughter he has with Galadriel, or Elrond is just trying the cow before he buys the calf, I don't think this is going anywhere, but honestly, who knows at this point? We're so far out in left field that it's pointless to try and make rhyme or reason of it. And I know that this was just to disguise him passing off his manly brooch to the broad, but there's 1,000 different ways he could have done that. This was a choice. Also, the show continues to try and make us sympathize with the bad guys. I can understand that in other works, but Sauron is pretty much the embodiment of pure evil in Tolkien's work, and the orcs aren't far behind. So when they spend airtime with Sauron talking about how hard it was being bullied by Morgoth back when they were at Middle-earth Middle School, or the orcs refusing to fight because war sucks and they just want to live in peace, it's simply out of place. Also, hey, remember when the orcs' skin burned in the sunlight like vampires last season? Because the creators don't. Well, I have to guess that this means the last episode is going to be heavy on Numenor and the Harfoots, so that sucks. Either way, just one more stop on this Boar Rings of Power Season 2 Express. Buckle up for bullshit. Did this kiss surprise you, or can nothing in this show surprise you at this point? What are you expecting out of the finale? Are you hoping everyone dies? Let us know in the comments below. Also remember to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to HateWatchers to stay up to date on the Rings of Power. Thank you for sticking your tongue down into the depths of hell with us today, and we'll catch you on the next one.